FragPunk just had some major updates for its launch, and yes, it did get delayed on console. We'll go over all the details there with that, as well as more than likely what happened, why essentially it got delayed, when it's probably going to be back and available for the console players. We also, yes, did finally get an official update to the global launch times. We'll talk about some of the discrepancies there with the release times, as well as some last minute community mentionables, and a whole bunch more. What's up world, it's Utopia back in with another video. Today we're checking out all things FragPunk. So first up, of course, yes, FragPunk did get delayed over on the console release, but there is some additional details there. So essentially, yes, to break it down to you, it will be delayed. Now we don't have an exact date there, but there is some additional details that could allude to when it actually will be back on console. So first off, why did this essentially get delayed? And what is more than likely the case of what happened there is that with both console releases, the PlayStation and Xbox, they do have certification processes. Now Xbox actually details their certification process on their website, where Sony is limited to developers and their SDK. So I will link down below to the Xbox certification tested requirements, and essentially every single game will need to pass this certification. This also does happen to be the case with PlayStation, with PlayStation's actually being much stricter than this. So this is an assumption there, but more than likely it either failed either both certification processes, or it probably failed Sony's, as that one has a much stricter requirement here. We can look at Microsoft's approval process, again requires all games to pass that, and they have things in here like title stability, gameplay menu features, DLC. They also have examples of failures on this, like title crashing. There also needs to be a substantial amount of options and language support. Navigation needs to be easy, as well as leaderboards, low or high friend count also needs to be applicable. There's a ton of things here that it could have failed. Although with Xbox, they can actually get something called a conditional pass, meaning that a game can launch but must address flagged issues in future patches. So again, more than likely here, it did actually fail Sony's TRC process, it's called, which is the technical requirements checklist to validate a game. Now it does have similar things here like stability with crash-free gameplay, trophy system integration, online connectivity compliance, as well as UI consistency with PS5 standards. Although they are much stricter in this process, as they must pass those, they cannot get a conditional pass. And if a game does fail, it must go through fixes and then reapply for a submission. Now this can take weeks or months depending on the severity of the issue. And again, unlike Microsoft, Sony has a much more rigid approval process. It is also known for rejecting games for even small infractions. So if there was a slight issue there, Sony would reject it. There is some good and bad with that. Of course, now we're seeing kind of the bad side of it where it is getting delayed, although it is potentially improving that quality there. Now, if it was a small issue that wouldn't have been a major issue for most players, yeah, that's probably a bit over the top to actually delay it. But unfortunately, it would have seemed like it would have only got one release there. But essentially, that is probably more than likely what is happening here, that it did fail the either TRC or Xbox certification, or it might have failed both. Typically, when you see delays there, that is why. That is also why you typically don't see delays on PC, as Steam does not have any certification process there. And again, more than likely this was a PC game that was ported to console. A lot of times there's games that are ported from console to PC, but in this case it does look like that was vice versa there, as there's probably more attention on that, why the console release did get delayed here and not the PC release. As for the time schedule on that, again, it could take weeks to months. There are no official updates there, and I doubt there will be. Let's hope they do get this back sooner than later. Although with the refunds, it could look like it might take a little bit longer. Although I do believe them refunding that more than likely is because they did fail certification. Which also means the game is actually gone from stores right now. So if you look on the PlayStation Store, all it says right here is announced, and it says release date to be determined and add to wishlist. You also have the Xbox Store here, which says that the bundle for the Pioneer Pack is unavailable, so you can no longer purchase the pre-order edition. Or if we actually do look at their developer notes here, what they're doing for compensation for the players, as they do mention here, they want to be fully transparent that it was an unexpected technical challenge optimization and adaptation, but they are giving some compensation here for console players. So first off here, for all console players, they will be providing all rewards gained via engagement, beginning from the start of Season 1 until the console goes live. So probably an average engagement there, you'll probably get a XP bonus or a level increase, especially pertaining to the Battle Pass. They do say that it will include in-game currencies, cosmetics, experience, and more. So again, yeah, they're just basically going to get probably an average of what other players have done. Now, there is a section here for players who did pre-order. They do even mention here that in accordance with platform policies, so yeah, essentially because they did fail these certifications, they did have to cancel all pre-orders. And don't fret there, they're going to automatically initiate that refund process. They're also going to provide in-game currency worth $10 to those players when the console does officially launch. You'll get some free goodies there even without pre-ordering. And they said, meanwhile, don't worry about missing out on the pre-order bonuses. While they aren't planning on issuing a new pre-order bonus before release, the bundle will be available for a time-limited way after console release goes live. So you will actually be able to still get that pre-order bonus if you are on the console platform. They'll probably give a week buffer time there. That way you can still technically pre-order even though the game is live. They of course mentioned their commitment here that the delay was not an easy decision. Of course they don't want this delay to happen, but they understand your patience for both Xbox and PlayStation. So some goodies and compensation there for the delay. And again, hopefully they can pass these certification tests. That's why they can't really give us a timeline right now, as they have to reapply and resubmit to that certification. If this game does reach high popularity on the PC platform, I assume that they're going to fast track this certification process, as like what happened with Xbox and Baldur's Gate 3. Because that game was so popular, they basically fast-tracked that to get it live. I assume the same will happen here with this game. We did get more official news here, and yes, everything was basically accurate from the Taiwanese social media accounts, that we are getting a 6 p.m. release time for CST. It's going to be 4 p.m. PST and 7 p.m. EST. And again, that is going live on March 6th. We were accurate there with the release times, and basically those were official. Now, if we do look at the Steam page, there is still some discrepancy here. So it does say that the game will go live in 21 hours. Or at least at the time of recording this audio. So if we actually do look, depending on the time zone there, that's around 8 a.m. CST, 9 a.m. EST, or 6 a.m. PST. Now that is around 10 hours before the game goes live. My assumption here is that is the preload time. Again, take that with a grain of salt. That more than likely could be the preload time, but we don't know for sure as there's nothing official. Although since it does say that's when it unlocks, and it probably will unlock at that time, that's probably when the preload will go live and then you can download. That should give most a substantial amount of time to actually download and play. Of course, a few days before release is probably always the best since dealing with slower internets. Now we can actually look at the official size of FragPunk. It does look to be around 31 gigabytes. As if we look at Loading Bay, or you can also check out IDC Games, they have the FragPunk distribution of the Chinese version of it. And you are actually able to pre-download FragPunk right now if you do download these clients. But again, that is the Chinese client, so you're not actually getting the other regions. Not sure if you could utilize that pre-download via those clients and then put it in your own client or put it into Steam. You're probably going to need some additional files there. But you can actually look at the pre-download size right now, and it looks to be around 31 gigabytes. It also is a global release, so don't worry, you're not actually able to play in those regions right now. But again, we can look at the pre-download size and get some information there. We have a few last community mentionables here. This first one, again, there's a bunch of tournaments going on. Now, these aren't really in NA as of yet, or at least in some European regions. I do believe it looked like Germany had some testing yesterday, or at least a little bit of a play test and a bit of a tournament setup. We also have this one here. Japan is having another one on March 9th. And if you head to the FragPunk category over on Twitch, Taiwan is currently still hosting a tournament, it looks like, or at least going over some replay footage here, so you can check that out if you wanted to do so. And they are currently live as of recording this audio. Whereas they do mention here that 20 streamers essentially are having a tournament, but again, that is limited to the Taiwanese client and the Taiwanese players. Still pretty cool there if you want to check out some new gameplay before launch. One last minute mentionable here. There was a player asking if this game would be supported on Linux. Apparently, I didn't even know this, Marvel Rivals is actually also supported on Linux. Well, it looks like this game was supported in beta on Linux, so it seems like on launch you will be able to play if you are using that operating system. Still a pretty cool thing there. Overall, it should about cover today's video. If you like and subscribe, until the next one. Deuce.